All right, guys, sorry I was late. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Not too long of a list comparatively for you. Just a few things I want to get to, and happy to take all your questions. First, on Bay Bluffs, the community engagement, again, as you guys have heard us say, I'm sure you've heard from citizens, the Bay Bluffs project's been a long time coming, the $2 million that we want to inject to not only get Bay Bluffs Park back open for our community, but we want to start that decision-making process. So we have scheduled a public listening session October 22nd at 6:30, from 6:30 to 8 at the Vickery Resource Center, obviously the closest community center to Bay Bluffs, right down Summit. And also our Parks and Rec team is in the process of creating an online feedback survey. So for folks that can't make it to that, we will get distributed with your help a QR code or a website link where people can just give their thoughts, something you thought about. So this is a very, very early stage of community engagement. We're not coming in with pre-planned ideas or pick from these three things. That will come eventually, but what we really want to do is we're all ready to talk about getting this back into the public good, and so we want to honor what I promised, that we would do that as soon as possible. So October 22nd, 6:30 to 8 at Vickery. Looking forward to that conversation. Also, I alluded to this during the agenda conference on Monday, so I know our council is aware, and council staff, and this will be obviously something that will have to go for approval per our ordinance, but I wanted to announce, and we've spoken with the family, that our plans to name a portion of Belmont Street in honor of the late Reverend John Powell. So the block between DeVillers and Roos on Belmont will be named with council approval in honor of Reverend Powell. And as I told his family when we had offered this, to say that there's probably no city block in the city of Pensacola that is better defined by one person or one person's effort than that block for Reverend Powell. So certainly an honor to even get to have that conversation with his family, with the impact that he's had on our community. We're shooting now for noon, November 1st is the tentative date, but again, I qualified them, obviously. I expect there to be some good support from council members, don't get me wrong, but obviously that is part of the process, and so you'll see that come to council in October, and it will be an honorary designation. Obviously, that's, as we would do with any of those, that isn't changing the street from Belmont to that. There will be an honorary signage on both corners of Roos and Belmont for the street there. So obviously looking forward to that, and I can certainly say the family was very, very appreciative, and that was again one of those fun conversations to have as a mayor, to be able to do what little we can to honor such a wonderful legacy. Parking permits, just, I know some of this will be repetitive from last week, but what I want you to take away is that when people go to parkpensacola.com, we will have some extra information. The date for these permits is October 1st still. That hasn't changed. But we wanted to get some information out ahead of, for example, some of the questions about verification of being a city resident. We're going to have some of that information available on parkpensacola.com this week, if not today, at some point this week, ahead of the October 1st launch. So, and then eventually on October 1st, you'll be able to get that link to sign up for these permits at parkpensacola.com as well. So, for proof of residency within the city limits, whether that's for the 50% off, 50 cents an hour thing for all city residents, or the senior permits, for both of those instances where you have to prove city residency, then you'll need to provide a valid driver's license and a vehicle registration showing your city address. That'll be the literal verification process on both. Obviously, there's going to be limited availability for any pass. The only exception to that is the 50% off. That will, once you prove your residency, that will be on your app going forward, that you as a city resident will only be paying the 50 cents an hour. So there isn't a limitation on that, but the specific permits by zone or the senior passes will not be infinite. They will be finite. So if you're interested, make sure you get on October 1st. For the senior pass, you need to be 65 or older, and that will also be verified with your driver's license. And the pass will cost $10 a month, and it's valid for one license plate per resident, per household. And you will not need to use the Park Mobile app. With that pass, you'll just park like you park in your driveway. As long as you're in a city-owned space, your license plate will be picked up if it were to be run, that it's valid and everything's good. So, and then the city resident discount program applies only to Park Mobile app sessions and for text to pay. So what the point there is, if you're going to still use cash, obviously we have no way to verify you're a city resident if you're using cash in the machine. So that verification and that ability to only pay 50 cents an hour as a city resident will only be through those electronic mediums that will be on your phone. And again, yeah, so we will have, just confirmed later today, parkpensacola.com, all of this information will be up. So certainly would appreciate spreading the word. Also, we've learned of a few companies. One thing that has happened with the private lots is they are now using Park Mobile, which all in all isn't a bad. What do we want? Goal number one, we want to mitigate confusion for our residents. So whether you use a private lot, a much more expensive private lot, or $1 an hour city-owned space, if it's the ease of use of having the same app and that makes life a little easier for the resident, that should be our primary goal, and it is. But one of the confusions that we're seeing now is if you're not paying attention, you may actually end up paying the higher rate, because if you're right next to a 5-digit zone that's using Park Mobile, then it will grab the higher rate in that private lot, even if you might be in a city space. So what we're trying to, really two things. Number one, we have communicated this to Park Mobile. This is something we've just found recently, that to try to make that delineation more clear in terms of when you're using the word City of Pensacola, that type of thing for private lots. But also the fail-safe is all of our zones are 2 digits. So if you have anything that's not 2 digits, if it's like a zip code, then that's definitely a private lot. So we're obviously going to try to increase awareness, and would appreciate, again, you guys sharing that if you want the city-owned rate, the 50 cents or the $1 an hour, then it would definitely be a 2-digit parking zone. We don't have anything else other than that. Looking forward to the Mayor's Cup with Pensacola High and Washington on October 3rd over here at Blue Wahoo Stadium. And kickoff is at 7 p.m. and that's not this Friday, but that's next Friday, so excited for that. And then you'll see another ship, if maybe you saw it on the way here. We were saying another Terminator-like ship, in case we get questions about it, is the MV Deep Energy. That's here till September 28th. And Offshore Inland's doing work on that vessel, and it's one of the largest and fastest pipe-laying ships in the world. So if you see, I'd say if you see it, but if you're downtown, you can't help but see another large vessel in here at the port. That is everything I've got on my list, and happy to take whatever questions you got.
Good morning, Mayor.
Hey.
I have a quick question for you. Do you have any intel on the American Cruise Line bringing their cruise to Pensacola, and are you hopeful that this could lead to something more, economic opportunity?
Yeah, we had a meeting with them a while back when this conversation first started, and no, we're excited to have it. Any engagement we can have to bring folks who may not otherwise have been here before or visit here is always a good thing. That's the general concept of any of the value of these cruise lines is to have people spend time waiting, whether they're about to get on the boat or about to get off the boat. What are they doing? They're enjoying Pensacola. They're flying in or out of here and spending their money here with our local businesses. So we love to see that, and the fact that this smaller vessel allows us to use Plaza de Luna and not need the major infrastructure that obviously a Mobile, if you're talking about a large cruise line, that's not something we would be able to handle. So I think any type of engagement like this that exposes the city of Pensacola to new visitors is always a great thing. So we're excited to have them here, and hopefully this trial run of these first few departures and arrivals goes well, and we'd love to see more of that in the future.
Mayor, on the Bay Bluffs, I know we're just now starting the public input. When will it be open to the public again?
Yeah, I'm going to speculate here because I don't have engineers telling me or architects or anything like that. And I know that the first answer is going to be it depends on how detailed and how the plans go, right? I mean, what we build is going to dictate what But I would think there's a world of which near the end of 26, middle end of 26, that we could have some aspects if we aren't talking about too much specialized construction. If we're talking about a lot of primitive trails and things like that, obviously primitive trails, which means no infrastructure on a eroding bluff type of thing, that's going to be easier to execute than building a large-scale thing in the air, you know. That's my long way of saying it's too early to say, but I've got, what I can tell you is any delay in that is not going to be from anything across our desk. We've got as much urgency to get this project done as anybody, and I certainly understand the community's urgency to get it done. We're grateful to have the funding. That would be the large part. If we didn't have that, then maybe this conversation would still be continuing. So it's good that we have that, but it's going to depend on the complexity of what's decided in construction. And I think that's something we're talking about the community as well, is to say, you know, hey, remember, it's a double-edged sword. You know, if you want something more complex, it might take longer to get open, and it might take more money to maintain. So I think those are the important conversations to have with the community when we both here and in the community engagements moving forward.
Mayor, are there any updates on the drainage project on 9th Avenue and Bayfront over there?
Not off the top of my head, we can get you one. I do know that we're slated to have Main Street back open in front of Joe Patty's here the end of this month. You know, if you drive by there, which I do multiple times a day, you can see they're kind of closing it up and getting the road back going. So I do know off the top of my head that one. I'd have to get you. Well, I'll get Jason to get you some exact timeline from Brad and Amy.
How is the search for a city administrator going, and are you concerned you're not getting a good enough pool of applicants?
No, I mean, first of all, we get dozens of applicants for every job. There's applicants, and then there's applicants that obviously meet the qualifications. But no, I'm not concerned in the least. We've got many options available to us, and we're moving aggressively on interviewing those applicants and potential applicants coming in during the open period right now. We have options available to us, including if the pool isn't what we expect it to be. All we've done is post the position. We haven't engaged a search firm. There's many other options available to us, and depending on what director job, we've handled them all differently, depending on that. Some jobs, like Parks and Rec, where there's a Parks and Rec department that has, regardless of the style of government, that's got folks all over the country. I think we had 130. Doing a great job. Adrian's doing a great job. Amy Miller always does a great job for us. We got great bandwidth up there right now, and that's the luxury that we have. Is we're not in a position. We're not going to hire someone for the sake of hiring someone. We're going to make sure that we find the right person. So no stress over here on that at all, and we'll continue to move the ball forward on that this week.
What was the decision process in not using a search firm?
Well, back to another double-edged sword example. Obviously, a search firm, the engagement of a search firm takes longer, and so sometimes we have the ability to post a job. Posting a job internally on our system and getting it shared out is the fastest thing we can do. So, and it's relatively, there's no pain to it. If we got 1,000 applications or we got 0 applications, we can have that posted internally very quickly. If you want to engage a search firm, and as we've done selectively, then we would, there's a longer onboarding process to do that. And so it has been relatively common for us to post the job normally. It's also very expensive to do. So we posted the job normally. Actually, as a matter of fact, in the case of Tim, we had posted the job. We had had a conversation with a search firm at that point. We had not fully engaged them yet, and then opportunity struck. So, there's things like that happen all the time. And so, to me, before we were to just jump in and say we want to spend tens of thousands of dollars, on a search, I don't mind doing that to find the right person. I think that finding the right person is important. But if we kind of lower hanging fruit for us to be able to post any of these jobs as quickly as possible, see what happens, and if we feel like
hopefully to go to the next level.
You think it's impacted that you haven't filed for reelection? Does that impact?
No, I can safely say that that's not an issue.
So you still haven't filed?
I don't know if you have to check.
I was I'm asking for a friend. Ron
I
Wireman,
know.
I'm looking for something.
We'll put the scoreboard wheat cents behind me or something. We're considering it, Rick.
Okay.
Mayor, what's the, is there any more update on the Baptist Hospital campus? You're coming up on closing soon, or what's the latest there?
Yeah, so I believe the closing is slated for Monday. And so we're very, very excited to have that take place, obviously. There's the conversations with the county, not really much substantive update to give you there, other than our legal team and the county's legal team continue to go back and forth on that. I think we're also exploring, there's still lots of what ifs around a property transaction with the county. So what's that funding look like? What's the use? All those different things. So, I think it behooves us as well to kind of be looking at, well, what if something doesn't come to fruition? Not because we don't want it to, I just mean, we kind of learned our lesson, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket for months at a time for something that did not happen. So we might start working towards, I think, as you heard me mention to the council members, the genesis of acquiring the property in our conversation with Baptist is knowing that we would have a $2 million delta that we didn't plan on. So the financially functional thing to do would be take the property that we just newly acquired, sell that property to close the delta as much as possible, and go from there. Now, I'm all on board with the community center idea, with bringing healthcare in those partnerships, so I'm not saying that we aren't or that we wouldn't explore that, but I think concurrent to that, we also have to be looking at, do we need to engage putting these on market, those types of things. That doesn't change where we are, but I think it's prudent of the city to not assume something's going to happen or that's going to be viable and isn't viable. So we're going to probably run on both courses at once to kind of say, well, let's close the delta financially on the case that this doesn't work out for whatever reason. Then we're not just sitting on our hands and then having to start from square one where kind of time is of the essence. But in terms of demolition, and we would have both a development representative for the city. That procurement process has begun, and demolition itself at this point, barring something unforeseen, nothing to do with the properties, but just the actual project itself. Both of those would be slated for some time in December. So I'm also scheduling meetings right now as we speak. I don't have dates finalized. I've met with senior leadership on base and the board at Pensacola, both in the training arm and of course with the CO, about having kind of a Baptist and affordable housing conversation. What are your needs? Also a listening session really about how we can best serve the needs both at Baptist and beyond as it pertains to housing in the military. And we're going to have a similar one of those geographically in the neighborhood. What are the needs that we can meet within the neighborhood? Food access, healthcare, all those things, and hear directly from the folks living in the community. So we will schedule both of those meetings before we even have a development rep, before we go to any physical demolition. I will be having those sessions to meet with folks in the community before anything happens. So more to come on those exact dates. But we're looking at a December start of both having that representative. Now that representative will be part of the community engagement of what we want to see in the development moving forward. So we're not trying to figure that out in 60 days. What we're saying is really the same concept as Bay Bluffs, to say, hey, you come tell us, what are you concerned about? What, for example, are you concerned about noise? That is why we took the bid that we took, to make sure that we're crushing concrete offsite, not in the middle of the neighborhood all day. Those types of things to try to, if there's any myths out there or any concerns out there legitimately that we want to make sure our team is aware of and our demolition team is aware of going forward, then we want to go ahead and learn that now. And one other, obviously we will have an owner's rep for the demolition itself, Jim. So just to clarify, there's a development rep that works on behalf of the city for us to engage the community, look at what our long-term vision and options would be. And then there's the literal owner's rep of the day-to-day boots on the ground representing the city during the demolition itself. Two different things, obviously. One's kind of more of the technical side, and then there's a separate procurement that's for the grander vision of the development.
So is it fair to say, though, as the negotiations with the county play out, that you're moving ahead with demolition regardless of what happens
Correct.
with that?
Now, obviously, we're going to have the conversations. I believe Erica will be giving an update to council on the next meeting, October 6th, which they, certainly they deserve an update. Lots of moving parts on the administrative side. And there's going to be some version of a funding delta or potential funding delta, right? So wherever those funds are going to be coming from. So I think this is the opportune time to level set, make sure that all of us that support this project, clearly our council is very appreciative for, has supported this project and supported the donation agreement. We've been in lockstep all along. We want to make sure that they get their questions answered and that they have a full understanding of what we're heading towards. I want to get their feedback on the acquired properties. What do they want to, what do they see for that? What concerns would they have during and after the demolition, all of that. So our goal is to kind of level set as a city government with Erica kind of giving the latest and greatest update. And she'll be updating some of those things, of course, some of those dates, but she'll get into more specificity on exactly where we stand and again, answer any of the questions that our council may have.
Mayor, back to the Baptist, for those that just tuning in late, a lot of them, the demolition, what exact parcel and building is going to be demolished? You talk in terms of donations of property.
Yes.
People in there, a lot of people, you talk about the old hospital building, you talk about the outbuildings. Would you describe what will actually be demolished?
Yes. So the demolition contract is for the main hospital and the 3 towers. Any outlying parcel, anything south of Marino, and goes without saying, these new parcels were not in the bid, nor are we planning on demolishing those. The bid itself is for the main campus. Now, there are outlying buildings that have some questions for, I think probably the most notable one would be the behavioral health building on South Marina, the 4-story that also has some major both flooding and or other types of issues. We've gotten a general cost estimate on that, but also if we feel that that's necessary, be it through public-private partnership or the $5 million commercial revitalization grant would give us some extra opportunity to help fund some of those things that are south of Marina Street. But remember, that $5 million, 2 important delineators. One is that money can only be spent in the corridor of property that we've acquired south of Marina. And then it kind of comes around where Cooperian House is a little bit on the other side, but it doesn't touch the main campus because of regulations around that funding. And secondly, if we use $1 of that funding, whatever goes in its place has to be 100% commercial use. It could be stormwater, it could be park, but it can't be residential. So if, for example, we were to use some of that $5 million to knock down any of those buildings south of Marino, then what would replace those buildings would need to be a qualified use, and residential is not a qualified use. So that is some of the stipulation. That's just the HUD CDBG grant funding requirement. So to answer your question for the late to the party folks, it is the main hospital and the 3 towers that will be coming down, right now slated for December.
What will be the demo technique? Are you going to blow the 3 towers, or are you going to use the old wrecking ball, or what
I
is
don't
the
know.
contract?
You would think I've been working on this project for 2 years. I would have asked them, do I get to hit a button or something? No, I really, that's an Erica, she could answer in her sleep because she's lived and breathed this thing. I have no idea if it's a wrecking ball, if it's implosion, if it's, any of those things. That's not, they didn't elect me for my demolition jobs, unfortunately.
Can we get a follow-up on that?
Sure, yeah. I'm just as interested as you, actually. I've been spent so much time figuring out how to fund the demolition, I didn't ask what equipment we're gonna use. But what I can tell you is that it's been studied meticulously both on our side and of course, I'm sure meticulously by the winning bidder because they've got to figure out how to fund it. So I'm rest assured, whatever that plan is, it has been spelled out, I'm sure, pretty specifically of exactly how it'll have to be done. What I do know, I can say this, the remediation aspect of any toxic materials obviously would take place, and that's what makes it so expensive, and what really makes this demolition as expensive as it is the remediation and disposal of these toxic materials. So what you will not see is a wrecking ball going through the side of a building the first day the demolition starts. My guess is there's going to be lots of very surgical, meticulous remediation happening on site well before you start to see large structures coming down, would be my guess. But we'll get you that answer, and I'm as curious as you are.
So on the, so the development rep, are y'all soliciting that now? Or
Yeah.
Okay, so, what are the kind of qualifications you're looking for in somebody to do that? Because I guess they would be also have expertise in, depending on what you're gonna do with the property as far as like finding a private partner to help develop it or
Right.
grant funding or that kind of thing. So what are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you've heard me say in so many different parts of this job over the last 3 years, really this same mantra, which is, we like to make sure we know what we know and we know what we don't know. And I can point you to probably some mistakes that city or county or state governments have made on a large scale development like this, thinking they know exactly how to do it. This is a major transformational project for our city, and we want it done right. You get one shot making sure that this is done correctly. What's a fair funding stat for this? What's a fair subsidy? For example, how do you leverage, there's going to be conversations about TIF, about CRA, lots of very, very technical aspects of how we can put the taxpayer in the best position. What do we want? We want the maximum impact in housing, education, in our community for the least amount of cost to the taxpayer, right? I mean, that at the end of the day, to put it simply, that's the scale, is if we can just put the dirt in and get all of this transformational impact that we all agree is valuable, great. Is it more than that? Is it less than that? What we want to hire, Jim, is we want someone who has been through those fires over a 10, 15-year project like this, and not as someone that's looking to get maximum return on their investment, but is working on behalf of the city because they've seen the other side of the glass. That is the sole purpose for that. Someone who's engaged the community about what they want, about helping construct a vision for what they want, and making sure that the city has its best foot forward when we do eventually partner with a company or multiple companies. We're not even prescribing that yet. I don't know that if it's going to be one company or 100 that eventually would be helping see that vision through. But I feel significantly more comfortable, and I think the citizens would feel more comfortable if someone was on our team that has been through a large-scale development of 38 acres, really now more than that. So, again, we've got lots of experts in this building on lots of things, and there aren't a lot of experts in this country that have taken down successfally and making sure that the city is represented, making sure that the tax revenue is fair long-term. We've seen some projects that we've studied before, Jim, that there might have been a TIF that becomes some type of tax incentive that would go into the project, for example, and it sounds great, and then it helped the development, and then now the cities can't keep up with the infrastructure because they gave away too much on the TIF side. That 10, 15 years now, it's time for them to fix the roads, and they gave away too much and maybe counterbalanced it. So those are the things that we want to be mindful of, and so we want to make sure that it meets that middle ground of it's got to be something attractive, and it's got to be something realistic. I think that's what happens in a lot of these too, is sometimes you start with too big a vision, and I can probably make the case in this particular project. You start with kind of the world's your oyster to the community, and you pick an amusement park, pick urgent care, pick these things that might take a major subsidy, and then you end up having a lot of disappointed people, understandably. And so what I'm going to be asking this representative to say is, we do have to bring to the real world what exactly this is. We want to meet an education requirement. We want to meet a mixed income housing crisis requirement. But what we don't want to do is, yet again, in this project, have people in the community and surrounding neighborhood feel as if we didn't do what we said we were going to do. And I think it starts kind of well-intentioned many times, is to say, tell us what you want. Your world's your oyster, and we'll build anything we want. And when it doesn't pencil or there's no interest in it, then it ends up looking as if the city or its representatives kind of came back on a promise. And so that will be, I think, kind of the challenge for this group, is to say, how do we allow for as much leeway, as much imagination as possible, vision as possible for what we want this to be, without making it an unfulfilled promise of something that was never going to be able to come to fruition to begin with. So I don't know the right answers to that and what those aspects or assets are, and that's precisely why we're hiring someone to help us do that.
Question from the newsroom. Many code cases like 1750 Palafox and the old bus station at 301 Bayland have seemingly dragged on, and is there anything the city can do to resolve these cases without courts? Is anyone currently working on them?
Yeah, so I mean, we code cases, obviously there's daily fines accruing at both projects. Interestingly enough, someone in 1750 has reached out. I don't think that that's going to go anywhere, but ultimately the code compliance is pretty simple. Fix the code enforcement violations or continue to accrue fines. Now, of course, there can be some long-term consequence to that, and that's not something that we would just throw around lightly or in a overbearing way. But especially in the case of 1750, when you start to talk about significant commercial blight that causes public safety issues, things like that, you don't get forever to comply to code. The idea is not that we want $1 billion in fines to be on a building. At some point, it becomes a public nuisance, and at some point, we might have to take action. What day that is, and what, obviously, we would be researching that and what's fair and what's customary. Bottom line, first goal is to come into compliance with code. We're not finding anybody. You come into compliance with code, then everything's good. If you're choosing not to do that, especially over a prolonged period of time, then we'll always look at our options. I'm not ready to say date certain on any of those or anything like that, but yes, we monitor that. Yes, we know the fines accruing every day, and what our hope is that those fines stop accruing because they've brought those buildings into code.
Mayor, looking at the legislative priorities, that list, it seems very general. There are no specific dollar amounts. Are there going to be specific funds you're going to be asking for?
Yeah, well, listen, I think on especially the port and airport, there's never been an exact number we've ever asked for, both state or federal, that comes in because that was the number we've asked for. When you're in the terminal grant program, for example, you ask for 20 million, you might get 5. They're generic, not because, we'll take $50 million from the terminal airport program if we were promised that we'd get $50 million. So those become more of, hey, we're going to advocate for as many dollars as we can in both of those. We've got endless projects on infrastructure at the port. Certainly, we got $100+ million terminal. We'll take any mitigation, and that mitigation of cost means we bond less money, which means it's cheaper for our citizens to fly. So there's a direct impact on our citizens if we're able to get funding. We'll work with our lobbyists as our state legislators do. They're calling our lobbyists this morning. So, we have lobbyists for that exact reason. We communicate directly, and that's kind of part of what our mutual charge is to say, okay, well, we don't want to ask for something unreasonable. So will there be a dollar amount? Sure, there'll eventually be a dollar amount, but you got to kind of let this play out. I think as well as anybody, this session, if anybody has a magic wand on a ball, or how this is going to play out financially, I hadn't seen it yet. Just please share it with me. But I think from a policy standpoint, from what's going to be available financially, when we're starting to talk about limiting property tax, things like that. Depending on how that conversation goes, we might tear up the legislative priorities if we're starting to talk about taking away property tax. That changes everything drastically. So it's not because we want to be vague. I think we're unfortunately between what we saw last session, what we're expecting to see this session, and so many things that affect city operations up in the air right now. I think it's safe to say we want port funding and we want airport funding. And as we always do and have done every year, when we've gotten the $5 million from the state for airport, when we got the $4 million from feds, those were never numbers we sent in and they granted. I believe, again, I use that example literally. At the federal side, I think we asked for 21 million, and got 5 or 4. So we'll put whatever number on it that gives us the best chance to be successful. But we're not limited to only needing $1 million on either of those projects or anything like that. We'll see how that goes.
So your lobbyists will then be, looking for opportunities.
Right, yeah.
Get on the budgets for DOT or wherever.
Exactly, because the streams are different. And again, I think this is going to be extremely challenging from a veto pen,
Right.
Standpoint session. So that's what we have lobbyists for in DC and in Tallahassee, is to help us that, hey, if this funding stream's available and this is not. I think the charge of how do we best advocate for these large-scale projects at the Port Airport is pretty clear. I think it's just more of what are those mechanisms that make us the most successful. So, and we did that at American Magic, right? I mean, we asked for $6 million of job growth grant fund. They could give us 3.9 in the first budget. And then we came back and said, hey, progress is great. Any way you could give us the rest of the 1/6? Well, that came another year. So this is very customary for us to be just kind of scratching and clawing the best way we can to help advocate for funding.
Who's the lobbyist that the city uses?
We use Shoemaker and Ballard in Tallahassee, and then Ballard in Washington.
Is there an update on when the reworking of Palafox will start, and what feedback have you heard from merchants who will be impacted?
Yeah, so where we are with Palafox now, it is out for bid, and I believe it closes October 3rd. So we'll have some idea in October how those bids look. And remember, that is a big unknown. We have not, nor would we have ever promised anybody what the cost, it's a large-scale project. So, we're kind of bracing for impact and hoping that the cost is within reason or something that we can obtain. And then we're also going to learn a lot about the process of whatever that bid is. If there is a bid that's an acceptable price range, which mechanism did they choose? Are they going to do what we call the Band-Aid approach and kind of try to do it all at once, which is what I suspect will happen, or the other alternate approach, which is going to kind of break it up in 2 phases. So we'll learn a lot both in a cost standpoint and a process standpoint by soon after October 3rd. And of course, the hope is that everything aligns where we can start construction as close to January 1st as we can, because that's the slower season for business owners. We met with them at scale. This room is full. Met with them and kind of went through all those things that we would be looking to offer them, and understanding their situation, free parking on Jefferson Street throughout that process, additional marketing dollars and resources, even bandwidth. I mean, Adrian in my office, this is probably her largest day-to-day project, that someone's waking up every day on the city side, being able to manage it. So big conversations around what we would provide business owners. And we're also, we're partnering with DIB. As we've said, DIB is there to help represent the downtown businesses, quite literally the acronym, Downtown Improvement Board. So we're trying to improve downtown. So we're working directly with Chris McKean, the board chair there in Walker, and we had some great productive meetings with them about to be our ear to the ground, help us, not only before, but things are going to come up during. But we're looking at what kind of marketing we can do. I'll give little examples. We're even saving kind of where we have those signs right there at Palafox Market. We usually rent those out. We're kind of holding those off as ways for us to communicate with citizens during construction. So we were trying to think of every nook and cranny we can. What do we do with the end caps at Palafox? Can we help people put tables out there? And maybe have some extra seating for some of the restaurants. So I'm certainly proud of both the contribution of the downtown business owners to come up with ideas that we've incorporated, the Downtown Improvement Board and our staff to try to do the best we can to help mitigate that time period. There is no project in the history of the City of Pensacola that has ever been built without inconvenience. If there are, I want their blueprints. But we want to, of course, mitigate that as best we can, and I feel we're on a good path. Anything else? All right, guys, thank you.